That's the bottom line. You want a war? You're going to get one.
The cream will rise to the top, oh yeah.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
Hard work pays off. Dreams come true. Bad times don't last, but bad guys do.
The bottom line is back after a 1-week hiatus. Hey, Mike, how are you doing?
Good. How are you doing, Ed? Happy to be here and covering all things UFL.
Absolutely. And just want to start off by thanking everybody out there for all your well wishes and prayers this last couple weeks. That definitely was a trying time, but I really appreciate everyone reaching out and getting a hold of me. And so excited to be back in the chair and
There's no show without Ed.
So we're not going to waste a lot of time. Let's get into it. So I'm not going to spend, normally on a weekly show, we always break down the previous week. Since week 10, for all intents and purposes, didn't really have anything important as far as the 4 playoff teams were concerned. We are going to keep week 10 really brief. We will start off by giving you the offensive, defensive, and special teams players of the week for week 10, starting with offense. Luis Perez, I got to say that the right way. Perez had a big week 10, which allowed him to pass Jordan Ta'amu in passing yards. But, had Jordan played in week 10, Jordan probably would have still held on to the number 1 spot. But DC did the right thing in sitting him and making sure he was healthy.
And what a fun team, they were my preseason pick as far as being in the championship mix. They had I would say a decent season, but there was just, and it came down to that game against DC, one of the games where when you could take it to overtime, what happened with that decision to throw the interception when you're well in field goal range to tie the game, go to the overtime shootout. If you lose in an overtime shootout, then so be it. But when you end the game like that costs you your season with a few weeks to go. I mean, that's just a hard pill to swallow. But it was, we'll see what happens next year. Will the King of Spring, will he still continue to put up the numbers he's been having from this season? So it'll be interesting to watch what the Renegades go from here.
Good evening, Henry, Robert, Xavier. Hi, Amanda. The Arlington Renegades and the Houston Roughnecks finished strong, both at 5-5. So one would say that they're poised, with the off season to maybe contend to get back into the playoff race next year. Hope that's the case. Interested to see with Arlington if Luis Perez is back, what all that entails. But Houston Roughnecks, their future's also bright. McClendon really got on a roll there towards the end of the season, and with them finishing 500 with a few little tweaks to their roster, I could see them being loaded up next year as well.
Did we ever find out what happened? Who was, when Bob Stoops kind of pushed off saying they had, they called that play. Did we ever get an answer of who was that play caller with let's do a fake spike here? I don't think anything.
No, I never did hear about that. But with all the pressers that I watched afterwards, I kind of got the feeling that may have something that Luis did on his own. And I don't know.
We may have to have Chuck Long, front of the program, come back on.
Yeah, maybe.
We won't grill.
Maybe in the off season we'll be able to find out for sure. But I have a feeling that Coach Long will probably stay pretty tight-lipped on that.
Yeah, he'll protect his quarterback. So,
right,
we're not looking to throw anyone in the fire. We don't do that on the show, but we just like to kind of figure out, hey, what was the mindset with so much kind of like in this at stake there.
So on defense, we had is it Tay or Ty?
I've heard Tay Crowder. Tay Crowder.
Yeah. He had right? two pick sixes this last weekend, and pretty impressive. In fact, he almost ran the option on the one.
Yeah, yeah, I know. And then they still bought it. Poor Memphis. They did. Yeah. The Showboats had a rough last week. But they started. Like most Showboat games, Memphis starts out pretty strong, and then just overtime, the better team usually gets the best of them throughout. So, but I hope to see, it's gonna be interesting what Memphis does in the offseason as well. Will it be another coach? We'll see how it goes with the boats there. But again, Stallions are just rolling. They're hot right now, going into the playoffs here.
And then for special teams, Mike will be very proud. I'll let Mike talk about this one.
Oh, yeah. So Xavier Malone here. So we return yards here, and we saw with the fake reverse against Houston to start the second half. And that was a very, very, very nice job by him. Very nice by the special teams unit. When we see how can you get creative with, when you seems to be with the XFL style kickoff where you're 5 yards apart, you think, so eventually these special teams coordinators would get creative with this. So this is Coach Fairman of the Panthers putting together this play that gained a lot of yards to get the offense going again, or just start the second half strong. And they did. Atling came in and made, the goal was to get out of there healthy from talking to the powers to be within the Michigan Panthers. And I think that's, fairly, I would say, mission accomplished, and then they had a competitive game in front of a record crowd, by the way, folks. So Michigan Panthers had 16,000 plus in Ford Field. So that is the highest number since the last game, highest since 1984 in the city of Detroit, watching the Michigan Panthers play football, up 43%. Over a year. So this is incredible stuff, and I hope this continues to next season. Granted, it was a bobblehead night, but there was only 2,000 of those, folks. Only 2,000 just bobbleheads out there. So 14,000 in there just maybe want to just come check out a football game. And yes, hello, Michigan Panther Pride, My Panther Pride. You can watch them on great podcasts, too. They have great tailgates. They'll be down in Birmingham. So if you're watching, if you're a Michigan Panther fan down in Alabama, or if you're a Birmingham Stallions fan, go say hello to these guys. My Panther Pride, good folks, very supportive of the league, Michigan Panthers. It'll be a lot of fun down there.
So one question right away off the comment line. David's asking about the Sea Dragons and Lumen. All I've been able to find out on that is the league is more than open to bringing Seattle back into the mix. But right now, all I keep hearing is that 2026 is not going to happen just strictly because the Lumen Field has already been dedicated to the World Cup for not only the games, but also the practices. So they just would not have the facility available to them when they needed it. So hopefully something else can be worked out. I know I have family that lives in Seattle. I'm not sure if there's other facility that they can use temporarily. But I definitely know that Seattle's in the mix for eventually coming back into the league. And as everybody can also see, Mama Bear is watching tonight. And if this shows the equivalent of a pitch count in baseball, she's going to be watching to make sure I don't get too wound up about anything because I gotta keep it on the down low. So if any of you guys put any comments up that you think are going to get a rise out of me,
Not tonight.
not tonight, because I want to finish the show. And if all of a sudden you see a hand come in and pull me off by the ear, you'll know Mama Bear's pulling the plug. So.
And you can't leave me on the show because then I guess when I go on my little rants and things, I need a breathing coach because then I'm just gonna go and 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 go, and then I might be right next to you, and if we have to go that route as far as like in the getting medical attention. So
let's get into a little conversation quick before we start breaking down these two conference championship games.
Sure.
Let's get into a little discussion on the UFL teams, the All UFL Team.
Yep. Fun awards.
And we're going to start off with the offense. And I apologize I thought this would be a little bit clearer than it was, but right off the bat at the quarterback position, I know there was a big topic of discussion as to whether Bryce Perkins really deserved to be the All UFL first teamer at quarterback, or whether that was something that Jordan Ta'amu or Luis Perez should have been in. What's your thoughts on that, Mike? And then I'll come in on the back end.
Well, do we want to keep is it a statistical award, or is it more so what you see on the field? I mean, when we watch Bryce Perkins, he's twirling spin moves, ducking, dodging opponents, and still finding a way into the end zone. So, the electrifying type of player, like video game stuff. So when you talk about who is a valuable player to a team, and I get why that some may say, oh, should have gone to maybe Jordan Ta'amu because he's played all the games where Bryce, dinged up, or they had the two quarterback system. But I think, it's warranted. I think it gave a lot of attention to the league. I think a lot of people on social media really watch, wow, this Bryce Perkins guy looks pretty good. He has NFL experience being a backup quarterback to Matthew Stafford. Him showing what he can do on full display on the field versus, he didn't get a lot of time to really see a whole bunch of action with the Rams. But now when you have a league like this, opportunity to showcase your skills. Now, well, the Panthers, when they, I guess, reveal the MVP of the league, is that before the championship game or a day before or something? I can't remember how they've done it the last few years, but as far as the MVP, I think it's warranted. And I tried to be not as I know you got the Michigan Panther thing behind me, but it's been an incredible watching them play out there. And I think it's got a lot of fans coming to the game to just watch Bryce Perkins play. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Well, I've always been one of those guys that always say the best ability is availability. And if you look over the course of the season, Bryce Perkins, although he was a dynamic player, through Nolan's coaching style, he played part-time the first 3 or 4 weeks. Then he finally got the starting gig and had it for about 3 weeks. And then he spent, it's been 4 weeks now that he hasn't played. So I don't know.
Do you think the MVP should be a game? Who's like they look at it like who's a game changer when they step on the field? And we talked about with Jordan Te'amu. Yeah, he's got the numbers, he's got the team, but even Eric brought up the completion percentage is 50% or under 50% completion. Now he's clutch. He makes big plays. He'll do some things to get the team in the end zone. It's a toss up, but yeah, if you want to, it depends on how the votes are, who's making the decisions, what they look at as far as if availability is one of the key factors, if is it not. So you could go. I think you could really go either way. Like you can go a Peyton Manning, Steve McNair kind of deal, co-MVP situation. Could you do that? I don't think the league would. I think they'd be pretty set on having Bryce Perkins, but this is the All UFL team. Maybe the MVP is that this is just for the All UFL team. I don't know if this would count to put how much weight this goes towards the MVP conversation.
Well, I would say
maybe they appease both and put one on the All UFL team and give the other the MVP.
I realize that there's only 8 teams, so you really can't go too deep with this. But I've got to think that there's enough players in this league, enough quality players in this league, that you could do an All UFL team and an All UFL second team.
Yeah,
and I think that when it comes to the quarterback position, it always seems like they want to give one quarterback the MVP award, but then they want to give another quarterback the All UFL award. Now, in my mind, you can have a player that can be both.
Yeah, we very well could.
You can also have a player that can be an MVP to their team, like Bryce Perkins. Definitely, MVP Perkins makes perfect sense for the Michigan Panthers. But when you're looking at the overall first team quarterback of the league, when there's only one, to me, I have a hard time giving it to somebody who only was a clear starter for 3 weeks out of the season. Now, that doesn't take him out of the MVP race by any means, because, everybody knows he's dynamic. But I think the MVP race is different than an All UFL team. But we can agree to disagree. There's no wrong answer to it.
No, I think both are very well deserving. It stinks that you got to have one, taking, one quarterback plays, right? But if you have a second team, then you would have your debate. So let's have, if you're fans watching or viewers watching, chime in here. Who would you who would you give the edge at quarterback to starting for these the All UFL offense? Te'amu, Perkins, or are you looking at Perez, throwing up the numbers so you can deliver the football? Or you just have someone that you watch, maybe you're maybe you're a Memphis fan and you like to have who's any of your favorite quarterback lead the team?
I mean, when we're talking offense here,
Eric says Te'amu here.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at the offense here, there's a couple that probably are noteworthy to ask the question, what's more important? Another position I was looking at in the offense was tight end position. Gunnar Oaks versus, there's a lot that thought Jay Sternberger should have been on the All UFL team. So it comes down to, as Mike and I were talking before the show, a tight end is not just stats. A tight end also is blocking. for the running game and whatnot. And so St. Louis has that very same, that very same situation on their team where they've had a mainstay tight end for, some time now. Jake Sutherland, very quality tight end, but he maybe gets a pass every game or maybe every other game. But is he any less valuable as a tight end? I don't know.
But when you look at this, when you look at the uniforms that are on this all USFL team offense, you get a lot of you see a lot of red and royal plum. You see a little St. Louis in there, a couple Renegades, and you also have you got a San Antonio Brahma right in there. So and then and then it's no surprise to me to see Chris Rowland on there. Chris Rowland is an incredible player too, who is also very deserving of the awards he's getting. So this is it's a good list. I'm interested to see what the defense comes up here. But with you, running backs, I'm sure give us your opinions and thoughts on the your St. Louis Battlehawks getting players on this list.
Yeah, I mean Corbin and from San Antonio and Jacob Sailors from the Battlehawks, they're running back. Wide receiver was Kane from the Stallions, Roland from the Defenders, and Tyler Vaughn from the Renegades. Tight ends, Sal Cannella from the Renegades and Gunnar Oaks from Michigan.
Ryan Nelson, tackle.
Yeah, we got a whole list. We got Ryan Nelson at tackle. You've got Durant with the DC Defenders at the other tackle. Mike, I always say Panasiuk, but he's the center for the St. Louis Battlehawks. And then at guard, you've got, is it Cabral, Mike? Cabral or?
I think it's Cabral.
Cabral. And then Gonzalez from the St. Louis Battlehawks. So that pretty much rounds up the offense. Let's move it on to the defense. Defense, it's, right away I look at it and I'm like, what? No Travis Feeney? But then again, you look at PETA, and PETA led the league in sacks, and I think he led the league in fumbles or something like that. And so, again, PETA showed up on the stat line, but I think as an intangible, Travis Feeney, definitely if there had been second team UFL, I think Travis Feeney would have definitely made that at the very least. Defensive tackles, Wallace from the DC Defenders, Winfrey from the Stallions, edge rushers, Robertson from the Defenders, PETA from St. Louis, linebackers, Beckett from the Brahmas, Harvey from St. Louis. Harvey's been a mainstay at St. Louis now for several years. Eric's fond of him. He's an Iowa State Cyclone, so he's near and dear to his heart. Hines from the Defenders. Cornerbacks, you got Baker from the Defenders, Harris from Arlington, Whitehead Jr. from Michigan. Safeties, O'Neal.
Oh, O'Neal's incredible. So fun to watch.
And Tarpley from Michigan. So, I mean, you're looking at, I think they said there were 7 Battlehawks on the All UFL team. There were 7 DC Defenders, and I think there were 6 for Michigan. And for 28 spots, you're looking at 20 spots just between those 3 teams. So,
yeah,
that's pretty impressive.
Very, and it shows that you're going to get heavyweight fights coming this Sunday.
Eric agrees with me that Feeney should have been on the list. You know what they say, he can, I'm more than willing to let him show us why he should be on that list come Sunday.
Yeah, there's and also on the offensive side here, Mariner for Michigan, incredible season at wide receiver, led the league in receiving yards too. So I don't know if we go snubs this segment or we blend it in, but he'd be the big one where I think a lot of Panther fans were kind of scratching their head, going, "Where is Mariner on this list?"
And then we go to special teams.
Nope, wrong way.
Well, I went the wrong one. Let's see. Let's try this one. That's better.
Yeah, and then so in special teams here, and also in the specialists here, give a shout out to kicker Rodrigo Blankenship. What an incredible season he's have. He's more of the NFL comeback, I would say, player for his performance this season. I think he'll have a spot somewhere in the NFL. Punter Brad Wing of San Antonio Brahmas. So when you get punchers, if you don't have I guess the greatest of offenses, you can still have a punter that can change the game for you. Long snapper Alexander Matheson of the St. Louis Battlehawks. So very important specialist, getting the ball back there to the punters, kickers, snap hole kick for your 3 points. And then again, Chris Rowland again, and people talk about the stats. So who needs to be the punt returner? I saw on X, you had, people going, all these guys are more deserving. And then I chimed in on X and I just said, just watching Chris Rowland play and his heart for the game, he's an incredible player. And if I said that if the Pro Football Hall of Fame expanded on its spring football display, or if you enshrine players from spring football in there, you would have Chris Rowland in there. He's an incredible player. I was in video operations for the Philadelphia Stars in 2023. I watched Chris Rowland every practice. He's an incredible player, very deserving of this award. He should be proud of his achievements. When you watch the DC Defenders, it's like, hey, you can count on Chris Rowland making a big play or two for this team.
Well, and Rod we trust, field goal kicker for the Battlehawks.
Hot Rod.
Went 21 for 22 for the season. It's a 95.5% clip. The only field goal that he missed was, I believe it was a 56-yarder that went off the bottom bar. So as Coach Beck has said earlier this season, he'll be in the NFL. Just like Bates is in the NFL.
Yeah.
In Rod we trust, he'll be back in the NFL starting next year. I got to think that that's going to happen. Thanks, Kat. I'm feeling a lot better. Got a long way to go this summer, but so far so good. So I wake up every morning giving thanks. That's for sure. Appreciate it.
And then you also don't want to miss the UFL. You got that to wake you up too. You're like UFL all the way.
So that's going to pretty much wrap things up. I want to get more into previews for these two upcoming conference championships. I am going to do the St. Louis DC keys to the game. But as far as for Michigan and Birmingham, I got some comments that I'll chime in. But for the most part, I'm going to turn it over to Mike and just remind him that this is a segment for Birmingham and Michigan, right?
Yes, this is going to be keys to the game right down the line. This is what to expect for both sides of the fan bases.
So, Mike, just to start this off the right way, I thought it was only fitting that we start off each segment by listening to the victory speech from each team that won the conference. So here, courtesy of the UFL, is the victory speech from Coach Holtz to his players after the game in Week 10.
As I said at the very beginning, how blessed we are to have the opportunity to play this game. How blessed we are to have the opportunity to play for this organization together. That's what we're doing. Now, that's 10 games. We got 2 left to go. A lot of good things. I know, you know what, as coaches, we nitpick, we bitch, we moan, we groan, but we talked about having some pride, setting the standard the way we do things here. And I'm proud of what we were able to get done today. We came out here in a game that everybody said that didn't matter, in a game where you watched a lot of other people lose, in a game like this. You know what? You came out, you did what you had to do. Proud of you, what you were able to get done. Great team win. Let's call it up real quick.
All right, y'all boys, man. We here where we supposed to be at. Let's finish, man. Team on one.
One team.
Yeah, I mean it's always a treat to get to hear Skip Holtz. Anytime he's when he's mic'd up, giving coaches his post game wrap up. He's a rah guy. I'm myself as a coach. I like to be a rah kind of guy, rally the troops. And it's gonna be a great game. I enjoy it. It sucks on the Michigan Panther side. It's almost like I made the comparison lately to the Harlem Globetrotters against the Washington Generals. Maybe the Panthers keep it close. Then you see the Birmingham Stallions just pull a rabbit out of the hat or some kind of trick to get away from the Panthers. So this is going to be, I think, the biggest game in the history of these two teams. This is, you got the dynasty on the line. Michigan Panthers feel like they have the ingredients to take down Birmingham. You got a lot of the UFL fan base that aren't Birmingham Stallions, just fans, can somebody beat the Stallions? This is what an incredible run that they are on, and 7 in a row. I mean, I think there's got to be a time where that stops. Could it be this game?
So, Mike, I'm going to ask you this because, you and I have been doing shows together for a long time now. And I know that every time the game, Michigan-Birmingham game, is on the schedule, you build yourself up to a fever pitch that this is going to be the time that Michigan's going to do it, and then they don't do it. But if you look at these games, it's been 7 in a row now, counting the playoff game this last year. It's almost like a carbon copy watching each game back. And the fact that Michigan comes out, it doesn't matter whether the game's in Michigan or the game's in Birmingham, Michigan comes out fast. And a lot of times going into halftime, Michigan has the lead. What is it that the Michigan just can't get over the hump in the second half? Is it one coaching staff outdoing the other and making adjustments at halftime? Or what do you think it is?
Well, when you talk about halftime, there's only so much time to really make adjustments. As it's shorter halftime in the NFL, but Skip, and I think when we see Skip mic'd up on the sideline too, I think a lot of it has to do with just him keeping his team composed. Like, there's still a second half to go, and they just keep, they stay aggressive to it, especially when you have to come back from behind, you got to play aggressive. And I think one of the keys to this game while we're on the game, big plays, Birmingham come out and just fire away big plays. They have, Jamar Smith just launching football to Deion Kane down the field, and then Michigan didn't really have they got through the Michigan defensive secondary. So, and then on the defensive side of things, and defenses, so in this day and age with football, and defense is you're kind of on your heels a little bit when you have to, one of the plays I just, it's hard, like 3rd and longs are so hard to defend, in my opinion, because you have so much space. The offense obviously knows where they're going, and they're able to connect and move the chains, on like a 3rd and 17. I've seen it a lot of times in this league too. Those are always just, I think, dangerous 3rd downs, and they're able to find those and convert those. And that's just like, it's draining for the defense, and you have to just do it over again. And you have to if Birmingham's down, you can't let off, because they will come right back and they'll take the lead. I looked back in the last conference championship last year, Michigan was up at halftime. They didn't score in the second half at all. And it's no secret, like another example too from this season, they were down against Houston. What was it, 25-0? And a very important game for Houston, but second half, here come the Stallions. So it's, if you got a big lead on Birmingham, you can't give them any room to breathe. If you give them an inch, they'll take it a mile, and they do that every time.
So I had somebody pop up in the background that we decided we were going to bring on again tonight. We had him on earlier this season.
Yep.
So you kind of let me know when you want me to pop him up on
Yeah,
the screen.
if he's ready to go, let's get him in.
I'll let you do all the talking, but I'll bring him up. Welcome to the show.
All right, we got Coach Justin Jarman. He is with me at Saginaw Valley State University, and his son George. These guys are big Michigan Panther fans. They were joining us. Let's see here. There he is. This last game, week 10, right? Ford Field, big crowd, biggest crowd recorded since 1984. I've mentioned earlier in the show, but it was a bobblehead giveaway, which you guys. George got his bobblehead. It was a Jake Bates. He was there in person. There it is, the Holy Grail, folks. There it is. Sought after bobblehead there. So happy to get you one of those there. Yep, look at this. Put that on display here. What an incredible bobblehead giveaway. And I think there was a lot of Lions fans in Honolulu Blue to come in, and I saw them walking with they're wearing Michigan Panther hats. They're buying jerseys. Jake Bates there with Ryan Nelson to fire up the crowd. What an event. And then I'll ask you guys too, just give us your takeaway of the season and what you're looking forward to this weekend. Big game for us.
Hey, Brad. Hey, Marty.
Yeah.
Hey, Chad. Welcome, everybody. Go ahead. I just had to get that in. I'm trying to keep them all with us.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, kind of reversing back to Saturday's game, I think that every game, and I've gone back and watched every time, I've rewatched every game that the Stallions and the Panthers have played. And as I watch, again, as a coach, I see things differently than most people see things. And it's almost like the fundamental, some of the minor fundamentals of, those ending plays, it's like they get lost. And, angles versus, trying to make the big play and just staying, tight to what you know to do. And I think, Michigan's going to have to play team ball to a better point on Saturday or this weekend versus what they played on Saturday, because that's what's going to win a game. And not looking for the individual, key plays, but to make a highlight, but to just play the position and make the fundamental things happen. But Saturday was crazy. Atmosphere was wild. We were able to bring in some friends from Ohio, that dreaded state that we all Michigan people tend to not like, but brought in some friends from Ohio, and they just absolutely loved it. I mean, again,
they might get a team themselves.
Yeah. So, but it was a great atmosphere. Always good to have Jake in the house. Again, as a chaplain, for me, it's really cool because he's an awesome guy, great guy of character. And anyway, want to throw this out there too to you, Ed. Prayers are with you always. And if there's anything we can do, we're here. We get on planes to help people, so whatever you need.
I appreciate that. I'm the one thing the doctors told me before I left was you got to quit holding things in. You got to start saying what's on your mind. And I was like, oh, that's
that's dangerous for a guy who's got a podcast.
But no, the thing that was disappointing about the Michigan game this last weekend, and Brett and I, Brett made a comment here about the fact that Michigan pretty much played their backups, and you don't fault them for a minute for doing that because you want to go into the playoff game healthy. But I got to believe with big a crowd as Michigan had that day, that there was probably a lot of first-timers, and you almost wish that Michigan could have went all out with their starters and really made an impression on some of those first-time fans. And I sure hope that, the fact that Michigan played their backups doesn't hurt them in the long run.
I don't think it will, because I think a lot of the Michigan Panther fans that were there kind of knew the mission with, and it was to get out there healthy. I think everybody in there at the game. Now granted, it was a competitive game. There was chippiness. They did throw Etling in the second half, and he, kind of rallied the troops a little bit. Michigan got in the end zone, made it a 19-12 game. Just a slugfest kind of game. But I think everyone had fun. People can look at this Panther game and say, yeah, I had a good time here. For the cost of everything, the time. You're not there for an entire day at a football game, and when the game's over, you kind of just get out of there. You're not in bumper to bumper traffic, at least not yet, right? So enjoy it. And then I'm sure, George, what's your give us your opinion on the game? You're probably the biggest crowd you've seen there so far, right?
I had this question already slotted for George, because I don't know if he's been around long enough to truly get into the Ohio-Michigan rivalry yet. But Brent makes the comment here: expansion's coming soon for Columbus, Ohio.
He's going, maybe.
So what does that mean to you if all of a sudden the UFL is back into Ohio-Michigan rivalry?
I mean, I think it would be great because, in every sport, there's always an Ohio and a Michigan team. Cincinnati Reds, Detroit Tigers, Detroit Red Wings, Columbus Blue Jackets.
Yeah, we get you. We don't like to say the Ohio teams, but we know they're there. But yeah, run them through, George. What else we got?
There's too many Ohio.
Yeah, there's a lot of Ohio.
But I think it's a great decision for the UFL if that's the way they go, because
I would travel.
I think the Michigan-Ohio rivalry going on, now, if you talk northern, southern divisions, I mean, if there's any kind of realignment, slap St. Louis in there. You've got three cities that are well within driving distance of each other.
We know Midwesterners like to drive it, right?
That's right. I think that just naturally creates three teams right away that would be instant rivals. And we've seen with just the few times that we've played Michigan, St. Louis, and
Michigan 1-1.
St. Louis and Michigan have been pretty exciting games. So I think that's a good discussion, and hopefully something like that works out.
May talk about that at the end of the show, so stick around if you want to hear about some possible league realignment from what's been circling around on X. So tune in for that. But George, tell us about the bobblehead here. So we got to see Jake Bates. Have you talked to any friends of yours that may have never went to a Panther game yet? Have you had any discussions amongst your friend groups? Hey, this is a pretty cool event if you haven't been to a football game. What's been on your mind since you've got the bobblehead there? And tell us more about your experience so far, George.
Yeah, actually at school, every time that a kid had a birthday and his gifts are always so late. So I was like, there's a football league that's way cheaper than the Lions because he likes the Lions. And they play at Ford Field, and they're just a really cool football league. So you should come on time, and you can bring your mom, your dad, and maybe your brother if he's here. You can bring your family.
Yeah, versus go ahead. Go ahead, George. Keep going. Let's
And then everyone's always so big about the NFL, and I'm like, well, why don't you if you're like, oh, why isn't the NFL longer? Just look at the UFL, and then it's just a smaller version of the NFL.
It certainly scratches the itch if you're looking. Yeah, if you got football fans or football friends that, I miss football, I wish football was year-round. Well, we're pretty close. I think the UFL will get you pretty satisfied with the football. Then, if you're, on mine, going to Lions games, I'm not at the 50. I'm kind of, I'm up there at Ford Field if I'm going to watch the Lions games, right? And I'm like, well, if you want to come to a pro football game at Ford Field, and you want to kind of if you want to be that fan to see the game up close, the UFL is right here for you, right here local to us. And this is a pretty cool deal, and happy with the turnout too. And then, gosh, I mean, it was great to see you all at the game again. I know, sorry, couldn't get you on the field. Coach Nolan kind of he had a whole bunch of people. He stuck the wristbands there. But next season, we'll be sure to take care of you. We'll be right there every game. I hope, I'll have to talk to Coach Brady, see if we can adjust the scheduling to kind of tie in with the with the Michigan. I'll give him the Michigan Panthers
it
schedule.
makes it tough. It makes it tough.
So let's get into some of the keys of the game.
Yeah, let's go. Let's chop it up.
Between you guys, kind of fill us in on the Michigan side on what you look at as being the keys of this game coming up on Sunday.
Yeah, so I'll start us off here, and you guys feel free, George and Coach, to chime in here. My first key to this game is going to be down to quarterback. How ready is Bryce going to be with this time off, and then with Jamar Smith, with his late entry into the season. This is a big game for both of these guys. High stakes. This may be the biggest game for Michigan and Birmingham in the history of this new UFL league. And a lot at stake here. And I think both these teams, in my mind, this could actually be a championship type of game. Nothing to take away from the XFL side of things, but these are two very strong teams, favorites throughout most of the season, going head to head. They know each other so well. How are they going to execute? I know Coach put in a little things of what he's watched. He sees it through a different lens, probably from the average fan that watches the game. That's one of my keys. And you got, I saw Nate McCrary, our Saginaw Valley State Cardinal. He seems to be back on track, had a lot of yards, 12 carries for 68 yards on the ground. So he's making improvements. And Tawa, they gave him the week off the rest of his legs too. So they're all the chips are in on this game.
Yeah, I think that quarterback's going to play a huge role. We saw that this past Saturday from them putting in third string. That obviously we knew what they were doing, but to see what Bryce is going to be prepared for coming out of the gate is going to be super important. But I think really the unforced turnovers is going to be a huge thing. We had a lot of bad snaps, little things that just, again, those things can't happen this weekend. And then the other thing is going to be, I think special teams is going to be a huge factor. It could really swing things. We saw a couple of really strong returns this past weekend.
We did.
So it's going to really, play a big factor in the game, I think, setting up field position, as well as, Coach Palco said it a while ago, our secondary is really going to have to do something because they've got some big targets, and everybody knows the Stallions are, they're known for being able to take those shots. And so going to have to be prepared and ready for that for sure.
I got a question for George. So, George, we've seen these two teams play a bunch of times. We know a lot about Birmingham, right? And with these offensive, what kind of game are you expecting between both of these teams? Do you think we'll get a defensive slugfest, or do you think this might be a shootout kind of game?
Well, I think that they're both going to come out feisty on offense, but I think for both teams, they're going to have to defend both throw and run, because every time, when they face the Roughnecks and they're not even playing them, every time they thought, it's going to be a run, they threw the ball. Every time they thought it was going to be a throw, the quarterback just ran for 15 yards. They have to protect both throw and run. But they also got to guard the middle of the field. I'm just going to refer to basketball, guard the paint. Because if, let's say a really tall guy has an open lane, and there's only a short guy at the rim, you're gonna have to protect the lane a little more. So you're gonna have to protect the center.
Protect the middle of the field, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're looking at be more disciplined in your assignments on the fields, and that's gonna be I would say what you're gearing towards, and that's going to be very true because both of these teams are very well coached too, and it's only going. I think it's going to come down to a few plays, and I think these few plays are going to make a difference, and it may just come down to maybe one guy misses assignment, so there's not going to be a lot of room for error, as you and Coach talked about turnovers and like you just said, missed assignments. Maybe someone's not in the right spot where they should be. So this is it's I'm I'll be down at the watch party and in Troy. For you, what are your guys' plans? Are you guys watching from home?
Well, not sure yet. We may end up going down there. It'll depend on what the rest of the week looks like. We've got some other chaplain duties that we have to attend to, so we'll see what that looks like. But for sure, possibility that you might catch us down there.
Yep, there'll be at the DraftKings Sports and Social in Troy, right by the mall. The directions I'll share with you. I'll send you the text of the address if you want to come down. There'll be a lot of us there. Big game. Jason, and then just a big place, and just you hope the kicking game. Me as a specialist coach, punt, snap, hold, kick. And that's both sides, and both have had pretty, I would say fair amount of success in the kicking game. So, how much are the situational football too? I mean, when do you, that 4th and 1, when do you go, what point in the game do you go for that? We know Michigan likes to go for those 1 points after touchdowns. Maybe we saw against Birmingham a few weeks ago, they kind of matched each other on that. Someone going to take a gamble. Oh, let's go for 2 on this and see if that just shakes up the other team's plans. So keeps them, maybe they got to adjust their schedule a little bit. So and we know Skip Holtz likes to kind of call his offense. We've seen him mic'd up kind of on gut feeling. Just like let's run it here, or do you script your schedule or you script your plays?
Right.
Maybe it's Michigan. You see Marcel Belfay with the highlighter, maybe he's a schedule guy. So that's what I love about seeing like the what the access that the fans get watching these games. And you kind of, if you're a football coach like us, or if you're watching and, if you want to coach the game and you kind of get to see what other coaches do, and you kind of like different things, build it for your own craft, right? And then there's always something to learn in the game of football. So I always like to be a student of the game, and I'm sure we all are too, because it's always evolving, always different things going on within the game.
Well, the one thing that I like about what I saw, Birmingham was in St. Louis, I believe it was week 7. And I think Jamar has given Birmingham some swagger that they were missing during the season.
I agree.
Like every week that, they had a different quarterback in there, but there really wasn't anybody taking charge. And I just feel like Jamar's come in. He's given their offense some swagger. He's given them some identity. And I think that Coach Holtz has enough confidence in him now.
Absolutely.
That Coach can spend some time on other things during the game. And, I noticed this last week that they put Magoo back on IR, and they've activated Case Cookus.
Right.
So that's a pretty good backup quarterback to have heading into the playoffs, albeit he's probably a little rusty too. But I got to think that a lot of this week, earlier they were talking about some potential heavy rains in Birmingham, which always seems to happen for some reason. But here in the last day or two, they've kind of backed off on that, and they've kind of put it down to like a 20% chance of, just regular rain or whatever. I think that's as good as news as Birmingham could have ever gotten, because I just have a feeling that they're going to get a good showing, and Coach Holtz is going to be looking to tweak Jamar and the crowd and trying to throw things at Perkins that he maybe is a little rusty on. I just think that there's a potential there that Coach Holtz is going to really, you're going to see why he's the kind of coach that he is.
Well, one thing too, and just to kind of piggyback off the conversation with Jamar, like Jamar's never had really since he's been in spring football, his shining moment to really get his. And Jamar, he was a part of that 2022 championship, but he had an injury in that game that took him out. Then he's never really seen much of the field really until this year. Skip had him around on the roster, but he knows the knows the system so well. And there's a lot of trust between Skip and Jamar. And you see, it almost it took him, as the season went on, he started to get better. And then as for Bryce Perkins, you got to, these two quarterbacks in this matchup too. I would say, Jamar's these are pro football veterans. Now they may be in different leagues, with Perkins being in the NFL, but this is an NFL quarterback here that's seen, the best of the best practice, how they prep. He came from Sean McVay's system, seeing how, and he's got a Super Bowl ring, and it's in the skill it takes to even be an NFL backup quarterback. He's been able to carve up some defenses. When they say the pace of the game from college to pro is so much faster. And then sometimes when these quarterbacks, they say in all these interviews, they're able to kind of dissect the game, slow it down. And you're able to read the defensive coverage much easier as you get more experience. So, but this is going to be, you can almost make it a coin flip game. This is, we would definitely all love to see Michigan go to the game because I think a lot of us will be traveling to the game as well. But we're going to be on our edge of our seats the entire game.
So having said that, that's a perfect segue into going ahead and giving our picks for this game. Thanks, Big Mike. I appreciate it. Jeremy, the boatsman from Memphis, checking in. Love you guys. And Excalibur has showed up. I don't know if you guys, George, have you ever met Excalibur?
No.
All right. Well, if Michigan ends up playing in St. Louis and you guys make the track, I'll make sure that you get a face-to-face with Excalibur. He's just don't ruffle his feathers. That's all I got to say, okay? So, Mike, let's start off with you. I don't even know why I'm asking, but who are you taking?
Is it the background? Did the background photo for me? Did it ruin the segment? Is there a team that I'm representing that's no bias here or anything like that? But I think I'm considering the game and all the things going into it, I think I'm going to go with the Panthers here. They seem to be they're healthy. They accomplished their mission week 16. A lot of the guys come back healthy. This is the game. And I'm like, oh, here we go. You said that twice already this season against Birmingham. No, this is I wish, if there was a way to have it at Ford Field, this is, I think, it's got something's times we're due. We are due for this. And this is, I wish I'd be there for the game, but I'll be watching at least at the watch party just to kind of be around with more Panther fans, share that energy, first downs, touchdowns, field goals. But, we've seen a lot of heartbreak at the hands of these Stallions here. And, it's going to be a war. I think it's going to be a very close game. I think it might even be within 3 points. And maybe BT Potter and the specialists get the job done for Michigan. So it's going to be a great game. It will be. That's, and it's hard to beat a team 3 times, right? Birmingham's done it. But when there's got to be an end of the line somewhere. And then, as Dan Campbell would say, if you see a light at the end of the tunnel, it's actually a freight train. So,
you didn't, Justin, you didn't say you were a translator, did you?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm just gonna take it for granted that Excalibur is giving me well wishes because I don't have an idea at all what he's trying to say there. But so why don't you guys give your picks with a little backup, and then I'll give mine, and we will move on to the other matchup.
Well, I already got it on every time.
Did you do the artwork on that one?
No.
That was a sold shirt.
Oh, okay.
He caught it.
I saw a lot of that, yeah.
At the Baramas game, right?
Yeah, that was a gift from when they did a T-shirt toss. So, But yeah, I would say honestly, I think it's going to be a really great game. My hope for all of them is that it's just a clean, healthy game for both teams. For all 4 teams. In the playoffs, that would be my hope. But I have to agree with Mike here. To beat a team 3 times in a row is tough, and so Perkins comes out healthy, comes out firing, and I think Coach is aggressive. He's going to have to be to overcome the Stallions this week, and so I'm going to go with the Panthers.
And they have never in this entire deal since the new spring league have a player like a Bryce Perkins for a full 4 quarters against the Stallions team. They don't, in my opinion, with him resting, that means they don't have a lot of film on him. How do you adjust him? They have a half a football or 2, with him playing, how do you adjust for that? I mean, I'm sure they have, they can have their scout quarterback run around and do some things, but you can't, totally emulate everything that he's going to do. He's a playmaker. He's going to make things happen. He's a magician. So when the game's on the line, you got a championship. There's a championship here. So big time players make big time plays in big time games. So national television, here we go.
So all I'm going to say to it is Birmingham has, as bad as all the other teams in the league have wanted to see them lose and be out of the mix. It seems like year in and year out, Coach Holtze is able to do what he needs to do to make it happen. And what seemed alarming to me this last week is, all season long, you could say Birmingham just isn't hitting their stride. They're just not hitting their stride.
Right.
And this last week showed me that, I don't know, he's found something. I mean, they put it on Memphis.
At the expense of poor Memphis.
I mean, and so to see that and to see the way he just seems to have Coach Nolan's number. And you know what they say, it's up to Michigan to change the narrative.
Right.
I mean, and for that reason and that reason only, I just feel like Birmingham's going to win the game. And if I'm wrong, then they've changed the narrative, and that just makes things that much more exciting heading into next year. But I think the pressure has got to be building on Coach Nolan. It has to be. 7 straight losses. He knows how bad his fan base wants a win. I know how bad he wants a win. That
I don't think it's at the level where he's, because you definitely don't want to go backwards as far as like making a coaching change. I'd be, they'll find a way, there's a way to, there's a code this to be cracked. Maybe they have the answer this time around.
And so Eric and KJ, they both took Birmingham as well. So it ends up being a 3-3 split. We'll find out who's right and who's wrong. But I want to thank you guys for coming on. Sure appreciate it, you having me on the show. And
always. Pleasure.
Any quick bottom line stamps for you here, George and Coach, before you part ways? Any final, rah-rah for the Michigan Panther fan watching?
Defense wins championships. They need good defense.
All right. And that's where you say, and that's the bottom line.
And that's the bottom line.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
God bless.
So, Michael, let's go ahead and take a quick break to hear from our sponsor. And when we come back, it's going to be time to dive in
XFL.
To the XFL and St. Louis, DC. We will be right back. And we are back. So before we get started talking about this game, St. Louis finished 8-2. They won the XFL conference. So courtesy of the UFL, let's listen to their locker room victory speech Coach Beck had for his players.
Hey, give yourself a hand. Yeah! Give yourself a hand. Earn the home field advantage. Hey, now it's time to go. It's time to go. All right, it's showtime. All right, we worked this whole entire year. All right, we finished the regular season. Best record we've had here. It's a tribute to you guys, man. I appreciate your effort. I know it was hard today. You guys are pushing through. We didn't have a lot of bodies, man. You guys had to step in. You guys played great as a team today. That's what all that counts. I'm glad that you were able to get out there. All right, now we got to come together. Whatever we got to do extra, take care of our bodies, do our things, okay? This is it, man. 2 to go. 2 to go, man, all right? It's exciting time. All right, take care of yourself. We're off for 2 days. You got to lift and run on Monday, and we're working on Tuesday, okay? All right, break this down. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh!
I love spring football. This is just incredible stuff. Like, this is such a fun league. The access we get, and like seeing how, a close-knit league like this, and just I love everything about this league. It is very good, fun football. The stakes are on the line right now. Yeah, this is Excalibur. This is even me coming from the Michigan Panthers side of things. Like he's a fiery guy. And you want to talk about somebody who has a coach that has the heart for spring football. I think a lot of these guys do too, but you see it on full display with. I like to hear from all the coaches. Every coach in this league cares a big deal about what's going on in spring football and what this league means to both the players, and fans that, when you talk about like the grassroots marketing and things of that nature. But it's a special league. It's different. With the NFL, you got the it just I don't know. I always look forward to spring football. I think a little more than your NFL football.
So I'm going to go at this a little bit different way. I got St. Louis keys to the game, and I got DC's keys to the game, but I'm doing offense versus defense. So I'm going to start off with St. Louis offense, their keys to the game. If you look back at week 3 when DC came to the Dome, it was really an abomination of really ineptness on the offensive side of the ball for St. Louis. Out of the first 4 drives that St. Louis had in the game that got them almost to the midway point of the second quarter, their first drive, they had the ball for 3 plays with third down being a 3rd and 15. They ended up turning the ball over on that play. Second time they got the ball, 3 more plays. By the time they got to third down, it was 3rd and 23. On the third offensive series that they had, they once again were behind the chains. And on the third possession, they were at 3rd and 13, and Manny throws a pick. The fourth drive, they had a total of 5 plays. So we're talking going into the midway point of the second quarter. St. Louis had 14 offensive plays for a total of 17 yards. And that was with 2 out of the 4 possessions ending in turnovers. So what that allowed DC's defense to do is they kicked 2 field goals, and they had a 62-yard pass to Ty Scott from Jordan Tamu. So it, for all intents and purposes, took the St. Louis crowd out of the ballgame. And really, the rest of the game, St. Louis was playing catch-up. So to me, St. Louis's keys to the game starts with nothing more than the offense has to start fast. The offense, They have to play with a lead. And how do they do that? When I say starting fast, they got to stay ahead of the chains. They got to have progress on first and second down So by the time they get to third down, it's a 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, something that they can sustain and manage, that they can keep the ball going. This is also going to keep the crowd in it. St. Louis likes to run a lot of misdirection with their running plays, but it's this misdirection that's also got them in a lot of trouble. I think that St. Louis needs to eliminate the trick plays. The trick plays has killed them. They also need to get rid of all the lateral plays that they throw to Ja'Cour Pearson. Not to say that they shouldn't work, but they haven't worked. And when you start off first down, second down with trick play or a lateral play that loses yardage, it just completely changed the complexion of the drive. These, they become drive killers. I think that Butler needs to get a minimum of 3. If you want to call them jump passes, go ahead and call them jump passes. Mike knows as well as I do that Hakeem Butler is a playmaker, and you have to get him involved in the play, into the game, regardless of whether he's open or whether he's not open. He's got the height and the separation that he can turn any play into big. The third down efficiency started rearing its ugly head again towards midseason, especially in this game. Third down efficiency, St. Louis went 4 for 14, 28%. You're not going to sustain drives that way. And with them having 3 of their first 4 possessions at 3 and outs, has your defense on the field way too long. And the last thing we need is to wear down the defense. Captain Obvious says don't turn the ball over. That particular game, we had 4 turnovers. And I'll say it again, and I'll keep saying it again. St. Louis needs to utilize their tight end position. I realize that they're a running team, and I realize that they use Jake Sutherland and Chase Allen as blockers. I understand all that. But how many times have we seen passes thrown to those guys that are wide open? They're not getting any attention whatsoever. So I think they need to introduce their tight ends into the game.
It's a kind of an honorable mention, I guess. My kind of, from what you talked about with turnovers, what we've seen a lot out of St. Louis, when we talk about turnovers, are you saying interceptions, or when we see Anthony Beck like to kind of go for it on these 4th and shorts, and if we don't, if the Battlehawks don't convert those, is that total for turnovers? Are you tallying that as far as a concern or a key for you guys?
You're looking at my sheet, obviously, because my last and on the comment line, Eric makes a comment that Peasy needs to be running slants. I fully agree. Give him something that he can hit the middle of the field. The lateral, I don't even know what you call some of the plays they do with him. They do a lot of laterals to him, a lot of passes out in the flat, but it's all sideways running. There's nothing north and south. But the thing that you just mentioned, the 4th down, St. Louis has.
You could say it's pro sports.
St. Louis has a field goal kicker that is as close to automatic as you can get. Don't get enamored as a head coach with going for it on 4th downs. How many games have we seen in the UFL come down to the final 5 minutes of the game to make, to decide either a win or a loss?
And you don't have many possessions with the clock running, on incomplete passes until the 2 minutes of each half. you don't have many chances to score points, and with how much is at stake here, I think points are going to be a premium for both teams.
And how deflating is it for an offense to drive the field, get into scoring position, they go for it on 4th down and walk away with nothing.
Yeah.
So don't get enamored with the 4th downs. Take the points. In Rod we trust. That's what I say.
Hot Rod.
That's right. Now, if you turn let's flip the coin over to the other side. Let's talk about DC's defense. I think, especially if Duggan is starting the game, which it looks like he is, if I'm DC's defense, I'm making an all-out effort to shut down the run, because that is St. Louis's strength. You shut down the run like they did in week 3 to the tune of 14 plays for 17 yards. At halftime, you had Jacob Saylor's 4 carries for 4 yards. St. Louis only had 45 rushing yards for the whole game. So to me, they made their own they made their own blueprint on what it takes to win this game. Duggan has not shown that he is a pocket passer, and he has not shown that he consistently hit his receiving core. So if the defense keeps Duggan in the pocket, makes him beat him by the pass, shutting down the running lanes, shut down the run, shut down Duggan's ability to escape, keep him in the pocket, it's almost a carbon copy of week 3. But you know what they say, until they can change the narrative, why do you want to change anything? And one of the biggest things is, I mentioned earlier, they need to take the crowd out of the game. And how do you do that? They do that exactly how they did in week 3. By keeping the hands under fans not into it. Now, DC is in a position to impose their will on the game. And the sooner that they can make Coach Beck make that tough decision, because you know as well as I do, Duggan has a short leash, because this is for all the money. This is for everything. A chance to go to the championship game.
To host it.
How long is he going to keep giving? How many possessions is he going to give Duggan to make a difference in this game before he pulls him and goes to Silvers? Because watching the games, Coach, Beck, it had to have been obvious to him when Silvers goes in the game, the passing game started coming alive. There was some real dimes that he threw. Eric says here, no wide receiver screens. I think St. Louis fans want to see the ball get pushed down the field.
They have the wide receiver talent there.
They have the wide receiver talent, but it's not being materialized.
Now I'm thinking, so sorry to cut you off there, so you can, is St. Louis a team that is built can they come from behind if they're down early?
Well, they showed against DC that they cannot. The thing is, and I'll get to it when you start talking about St. Louis defense. It was obvious in week 3 that the St. Louis defense kept them in that game. And they shortened the field. So even though St. Louis was struggling on offense, they got a couple turnovers that shortened the field that allowed St. Louis to put points on the board. St. Louis has to find a way to play with the lead. let's turn it over.
One more final thought for me before we turn it over.
Okay.
If I'm DC, I would actually, put a little time in watching that Michigan tape. There was how many? I think 4 to 6 lead changes in that game. Late in the game too. That second half was incredible. If you have that replay, if you DVR'd it or you find that game, I believe ESPN had the game. So if you have ESPN Plus, go back and watch that game. And let's see what did St. Louis do. When you're in a back and forth kind of shootout with Michigan late in the game. What kind of plays are they doing? Max Duggan was the guy in there. Maybe this is something DC fans could be note of, something to be ready for when you're watching the game. So I would actually, if you got time to watch a game over, I would pick that one. See how, what's the response of St. Louis when they're down? What do they do? What are their tendencies? So this is all part of, you're scouting your opponent. What do they do? So that'd be a fun game to watch and look back on.
And just like DC did, let's talk about DC's offense versus the St. Louis defense. DC was very effective in week 3 at staying ahead of the chains. They didn't have a lot of plays that ended in a loss. They big time controlled the time of possession. So I think early on, if they can limit St. Louis's pass rush from the 2 defensive ends, which is their strength, I think an effective running game to start off with is going to open up Ta'amu to play action, which I think one of the things that everybody forgets about Jordan Ta'amu is that he is actually a running quarterback. Now, 2 years ago, last year, by the time the end of the season come, he was pretty beat up because he ran too much. This year, he's hardly ran at all. But I got to think that that's one of the things they're keeping in their back pocket is that when Jordan gets the opportunity, those edge pass rushers come in. If they're taking too wide of an angle coming in on their pass rush, I can see him slipping right through there and taking off running.
And I think a running quarterback in this league is actually essential for one, how short of a time, to get, because that's why when you say like the defense is being ahead of the offense, you know what I mean? With, maybe not early in the season, you don't see a bunch of points, but if you got a quarterback that can move it on the ground to make things happen, it can win you some games. And this is, no more important game than these 2 games come Sunday.
So one of the things that Jordan was guilty of in week 3 was that he had a couple interceptions that allowed St. Louis to have a short field. And Eric comments here, make him rush his throws. I firmly believe that he gives a defense 2 or 3 opportunities a game to make big plays. Now, when he gives you the opportunity to make those plays, you got to exploit it and you got to actually make the play. So what does, when I said earlier about their time of possession game and DC being able to run the ball, you give Jordan the opportunity for play action pass. St. Louis's cornerbacks and safeties have shown that they can get beat on big plays. And week 3, they had a 62-yard touchdown pass to Ty Scott. It was a perfect example. As long as the DC offense plays discipline, they limit their turnovers, they play the field position game where whenever they have to punt or whatever, they're making St. Louis go the long field. When you're a running team, can you remain patient enough for those long drives? I think that's a key too. So that brings me then to the St. Louis defense. number one on the list has got to be eliminate the big pass plays. St. Louis has got a hell of a defense, but I would say their one weakness is they give up too many long pass plays. So
Michigan has that problem too. Hopefully both teams can make the right adjustments.
And like I said just a bit ago, when turnover opportunities present themselves, you got to make the play. By the offense for St. Louis, not being behind the eight ball at the beginning of the game and getting behind. Now these defensive plays that St. Louis always seems to be able to make during the game, whether it's pick sixes or interceptions or whatever to get the short field, now those plays that they're making on defense is extending their lead. It's maybe putting the game out of reach. It's a lot of pressure to put on the defense when you have to rely on the defense to either keep you in the game or get you back in the game. So I think as much pressure as I'd like to have on Jordan Sunday, I think there has to be equal responsibility of the edge rushers to keep him in the pocket. I guess we'll wait and see there. As far as special teams go, St. Louis has been abysmal at conversions. It's one of the things I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that I thought that they needed to take an off day and the coaching staff needed to just watch game film of the Michigan Panthers conversions because the conversion rate on Michigan is unreal. I think I got it written down somewhere. Here we go. Michigan's conversion rate is 65%. That's overall 65%. They're 16 for 26 at 1 points. They're 2 for 3 at 2 point. Now you look at St. Louis conversions for 1 point, 6 for 14, which is 43%. 2 points, they're 3 for 12, 25% clip. So their overall efficiency is only 35%. Does that mean maybe they start going for ones after touchdowns? Just go with a single point?
I would.
I think that's basically what Michigan started doing. I mean, for the most
worked.
For the most part, they go for the 1 point and that's it.
In pro football, you always try to take the most for sure points as you can.
So then, when we look at DC's special teams, as abysmal as I talk about St. Louis being on conversions, DC's even worse. DC's at an overall clip of 29% for their conversions. They're only 17% on 2 point conversions. They're at least 50% on 1 point conversions. So I guess I'm kind of baffled why the UFL teams, for the most part, seem to always want to go for two.
Memphis is the same way. That one was actually like it kind of stumped me a little bit. Michigan's figured it out. Like, hey, let's get let's just take the which one of these three do we have the best chance at getting? If you can just get that one and just keep piling those up, because if a team tries to tie you and they don't get that one, or if they go for two to try to take the lead and you shut that down, you have that lead. So, and that's the team rallies around there like, hey, we made a stop, and then we've heard even in the off season and, a little bit even during that, teams, when they get those 6 points and you fail to make that conversion, it's like, they know they didn't get all of it. If you're a Michigan team, you score and you get that conversion and they feel pretty good on the sideline. Defense can go out and do their thing, do their job. Offense gets the ball back and do it again, keep piling up points. So, points are at a premium, and I hope maybe we'll see teams try to take look at the percentages. What's our best move here, and then if it's to go for one, then that should be the move.
Well, and so if you put the 2-point conversions together between the two teams combined, they are 6 for 30 in 2-point conversions. And if you put their 1 points together, they are 10 for 22. So that's still not as high as it should be, but I think that the 1-point conversion probably makes sense. Now, again, the game can dictate, what you need to go for, but
I'm more on the boat with, if you go for 2 and 3 when you need to. If you don't need to go for 2 points right early in the game when there's no reason to, I think that's a lot of risk on that play, getting, with the position and how many yards to the end zone. I think that's a tall order, and I think that's a lot. It can really harm your team, I think, if you don't convert on that.
So Eric brings up a point here, no dumb penalties. Now,
don't be the guy.
St. Louis is tied for first in the league for the least amount of penalties. Now, that doesn't mean that the penalties that they do have aren't dumb. I mean, that can still be the case, but so far through the regular season, St. Louis is tied for first for the least amount of penalties with 47. DC is fifth in the league. They've had 73. DC has a tendency to get a lot of unsportsmanlike conduct penalties. I haven't.
It's always the person who retaliates who gets the flag.
Yeah. So, having said all that, and probably when I mentioned earlier about taking the points, especially early in the game, when you look at the conversion rate for field goal kickers, like I said, in Rod We Trust, he's 21 for 22 for the season. The only one he missed was a 56-yarder. The DC kicker is 14 for 20. He's only at a 70% clip. And I know he missed a pretty much chip shot against St. Louis in week 3. So I think it's very important that as St. Louis is presented with points, you take the points. I think you take the points until it's necessary to go for it on 4th down.
I agree.
Now, I want everybody to stamp this date in history that Mike agrees, because being an avid Detroit Lions fan, he has defended Coach Campbell to no end on going for it on 4th downs.
They got Jake Bates now.
I spent more time in Messenger during Detroit games arguing with Mike over kicking field goals than anything I can think of. But so anyway, that pretty much sums up my synopsis. Is there anything else, Mike, that I missed? Or
we didn't get let's get KJ and you said Eric had some keys in there.
Well, KJ and Eric, they both, let's see.
At least more. Eric's probably got a whole. He'll
No,
dissect.
Eric and KJ did not bless me with their keys to the game.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, what do you think now? Now is about the time to get in some picks here, right?
Yeah, we could just well get into the picks and then move on to the next topic.
Feel free to chime in, folks. This is the big one here, XFL side. Let's see them. Let's fire away here.
Big Mike's got DC winning. That's the only
Big Mike's
one
got
DC.
Yep. Let's take a couple more minutes just to kind of just think about this game too. I mean, I'm sure the crowd's gonna be great. Ed, are you thinking this is going to be the highest attended game of the season, knowing what's at stake for St. Louis?
You would think so. And John's also taking DC.
Yep, to DC. We're the
one disappointment. The St. Louis crowds have not been as big this year. But again, I don't think that the crowds being smaller as a result of lack of enthusiasm or
No,
lack
you
of.
said they were loud against Michigan.
We've got a couple of Battle Hawks.
Yep.
Evans. In fact, I was going to tell him too. Let Evan know that Colin will be at the game on Sunday, so he'll have a football buddy that game. I think that ticket prices is something that's got to be addressed in St. Louis. I think that ticket prices are way too high. I've went to enough away games and bought tickets out of town to know what they cost. And it's unbelievable how much more expensive St. Louis tickets are than a lot of the other venues. And I got
you don't want
to
to
say,
price out some fans.
ticket prices are definitely a big reason why attendance has not been as high this year. So they've got to figure that out. I would love to think that they're going to break an attendance record this Sunday, but looking at ticket sales so far this week, I would say that that's not going to happen. The Dome or St. Louis Battlehawks or whoever has control of ticket prices have to make the experience affordable for the fans with their family to come to the game if they're ever going to grow the fan base. I've even had some people say, do tier pricing, do adults a certain price, do kids another price, cheaper price, that kind of thing. Will that work? Maybe, but you know as well as I do, there's always someone that'll try and take advantage of the system. And what kind of pressure does that put on the ticket takers when you come into the stadium and someone's bought 2 adults and 2 kids and now they're standing there with 4 adults and they're trying to get into the game and so that's one of the things in the off season that's got to be taken care of. But do I think we'll hit 30,000? Yeah, I think we'll hit 30,000 for the game. But I'm hoping that at some point they realize that they've got to cheapen the price and make it more affordable. But getting back to the game and talking about who I'm picking. If the stars were ever going to align for the St. Louis to have a chance to make it to the championship game, this is it. They got the best record in the XFL. They got home field advantage, which they already had because of DC's situation. How would Week 10 have played out if DC would have had an honest attempt to be able to claim home field? Would Week 10 have been a knockdown drag-out for home field advantage? I guess we'll never know that. But St. Louis is never going to have another opportunity to make to the championship and win one. So I got to believe that Coach Beck has done an effective job this year with them winning 6 in a row, that he's got their attention. He's got the winning potion. What's the word I'm looking for? He's got the elixir going. He knows
ingredients.
That's right. John asked if I'm going to the game. Oh, here we go. Here is my speech. Thank you, John, for reminding me of that. John was asking if I'm going to the game. So here's the deal. I can't get excited, right? I got to keep my emotions under control. So how do they do that?
Throw you in the press box.
Coach Beck and the St. Louis Battlehawks need to have control of this game from beginning to end. The game can never be in doubt, so that I can just sit there in my fluffy La La Land world, not get worked up, sip on my bottle of water, and enjoy a Battlehawks victory. So I say there's never going to be a better opportunity than now. So I got St. Louis winning this game. I've also can tell you that Eric
Are you going to be in the building?
Eric took St. Louis. KJ took DC. So the final pick is up to you, Mike. What's it going to be?
Well, for those watching, there's emotions both sides for this game. For me personally, I know a couple players. I know a player on each team, or I know of one on St. Louis who is a Saginaw Valley Cardinal, where I currently coach at. Nick Whiteside, he's a defensive back for St. Louis. You'll see him number 10 on the field. Great player for Saginaw. Coach Brady tells me great things. He was a Washington Commander. He had a time there. Now he's here with us in the UFL. And then we got a Philadelphia Star and Chris Rowland, who, we're looking out for each other, I would suppose. He checks in on me and, we talk and, just root for each other, Philadelphia Star to Philadelphia Star. But with the pick, the graphics going to show St. Louis. However, I don't want this to take anything away from DC. This is an incredible opportunity for DC and Chris Rowland. I have my rooting interest. I mean, I don't know where to go. I said on the air I would pick DC to win, despite the fan base. It'd be an incredible fan base matchup between Michigan, St. Louis. What an incredible game that was earlier. If we got a repeat of that for the league championship, that'd feel like a Super Bowl. Boy, I mean, it's gonna be great either way. But I think for the interest too, I mean, you'll see. I'll go DC, and then the dust will settle with the reason why too. With I'm just not sure if what's gonna happen if St. Louis gets behind. I think DC's got a little bit more offensive firepower. Who wins the turnover battle? That's gonna be key too. In the championship, though, we're going to have a quarterback shootout between Jordan Tamu and Bryce Perkins. It's going to be – we're going to feel like some Tom Brady, Peyton Manning stuff. I was watching NFL Network today. They had the 2007 AFC Championship game on there. Final score was 38-34. If we have these quarterbacks, everyone likes offense. Everyone likes to see the quarterbacks shoot it around. But may the best team win. I think it's going to be a great matchup. We talked about the combinations of matchups that we can get with these two games here. What would be like, I'd like to call it the spice level of it. If you get Michigan, St. Louis, you're going to have two passionate fan bases. If you get St. Louis versus Birmingham, the conversation or the story build up, which team's really the face of the new USF or the new UFL? A lot gets put into St. Louis with their fans and things. I mean, you got Birmingham Stallions, the dynasty that they have right now. That'd be incredible. If we get DC Birmingham, you got the coaching thing from earlier in the season. You got that storyline. That'd be incredible too. And then, if you get St. Louis and Birmingham again, or what am I missing one? Who did I miss here? I think I hit them all, right? There's 4 combinations of those, the matchups we have. Yeah, I hit them all there. That's but you can't go wrong. I mean, may the best teams win. But the graphic, it will show. If you look on the graphics on the bottom line, it'll say I picked St. Louis. A little bit of a change of heart. I said some things, great things about Chris Rowland. I don't want to sacrifice. I'm rolling with representing the Philadelphia Stars. We're still here in spring football. Got to root for the Stars. If we get a championship out of this thing for the Philadelphia Stars kind of deal, because we were a team that was cut by the merger, but Chris Rowland win one for us at the Philadelphia Stars. If you get there and win that championship, we'd be rooting for you.
Make sure everybody remembers one thing when it comes to power rankings. When you only have 8 teams for power rankings, the top 4 teams are 1A, 1B, 1C, and 1D. You can make an argument for any of the 4 teams being number 1. So when you see power rankings 1 through 8 and you see Michigan sitting at number 4, or you see Birmingham sitting at number 4, or if, in my case, this last week's power rankings, I had DC number 1, St. Louis number 2. Man alive, did I hear it. And it's like DC handled St. Louis in St. Louis in week 3. So what makes that one wrong? St. Louis beat Birmingham. They beat Michigan. So what makes it wrong for Michigan and Birmingham to be? I mean, you can literally go from team to team to team to team.
Michigan handled
argument that will take 1 and 4 and completely flip them around. So I think from now on, when I do power rankings, I'm gonna do 5, 6, 7, and 8, but then I'm gonna do 1A, 1B, 1C, and 1D, and go from there. So this week I didn't do power rankings because at this point we've got our 4 playoff teams. So power rankings probably aren't that necessary. Brett asks again here, am I going to the game on Sunday? Yes, that's my intention, to go to the game on Sunday. So I'm putting the ball strictly, absolutely, with all my health and everything, I'm putting it all in St. Louis's lap to provide me with a stress-free environment. That's what I need. Stress-free environment. That's what I need.
Football's one of the most stressful sports out there, huh?
So anyway, what we're going to do now is I am going to take a break. And when we come back, I am going to turn it over to Mike, because Mike,
interesting conversation.
I'm going to give him 10, 15 minutes tops.
Yeah.
He wants to get into some expansion and relocation talk. So we will be right back. These are courtesy of the UFL.
We're halfway through our season. There have been highs.
Here comes the pressure. Perkins still on his feet. Tom walking deep. Tom into the end
There's
zone.
been lows.
And he's picked up. And this play is still alive.
But every time, it's electrifying.
First down completion. How about the touchdown?
Spring football is back. United Football League. Let's go.
Beautiful Sunday morning.
He was pumping up his beer snake friends back in the north.
All UFL for a reason.
So many personalities on the field and in the stands in this league.
We love the moments, the memories, the magic, the game. So let's get more. More action. More celebration. More unforgettable. More football. More of what you love.
Remember when I was playing those at the beginning of the season, it's like, wow, where'd the season go?
It's gone. It's always more of it's what we love. It's always things that you love that go just so quickly. So you got to, just take a moment to just appreciate that. We have spring football, no matter what, has been talked about as far as like business and league things going on. Just be happy for the opportunity that we all have to watch spring football.
So hit us, Mike. You spend a lot of time on X, so you've said that the talk has been wild and willy when it comes to expansion and relocation. So, what do you got?
Yeah, so I would say the more so like the engine behind this topic, I would say be more so about realignment versus expansion. Now, obviously, if there's an expansion, there's going to be, the league's going to have to make a decision. And and this is courtesy of James Larson, who we all know from his reportings and, his information that he gives us on social media, what's going on kind of behind the scenes. So he said on X, there's been plenty of talks behind the scenes during the UFL, possibly ditching the USFL and XFL brands and creating a more traditional North versus like divisional conference, a Northern Conference and a Southern Conference sort of structure. So when we talk about the rivalry we have between the USFL and XFL, me personally, like you see me wearing a USFL hat. This is a pretty big topic, but it can also mean, I've said it before, I think St. Louis and Michigan has a rivalry. Great, they would still play once a year, but if they expand, how often would they play? If it's 10 teams, would Michigan and St. Louis be on the schedule? Or if you go into a North and South structure, Michigan and St. Louis could play twice a year. They're very much in driving distances. And then when we talk about teams that could be potentially joining the league, let's say you have St. Louis, you have Michigan, let's say you have DC up there. Then let's say you bring in Ohio, maybe Chicago Blitz make a return, maybe the Philadelphia Stars, and if you ditch away with the USFL and XFL kind of conferences, things like that, your Southern Division, you have your XFL teams down there. Do you move Houston down there? So you'll have Houston, Arlington, San Antonio, Birmingham down there. And if you add the Tampa Bay Bandits, so there's like your Southern Conference there. So league's going to have, for the direction of the spring football, will more people go to the Houston games, the San Antonio games when you have Houston and San Antonio playing each other twice a season for a division? How much will that matter? We mentioned it earlier, us Midwesters up here, we'll drive it if it's within distance. And within distance, we'll drive 11 hours to get somewhere. Or people like, they don't understand. You see the memes out there. They don't understand how Midwesterners, oh yes, it's only 11 hours. We'll drive it. That's easy. But driving to St. Louis would be a good one. So, yeah, I'm kind of, I'm mixed here. I love the retro feel for the USFL. The XFL fans have said they have a pretty good, conference rivalry. All four teams having history with each other already. If you do the North-South, St. Louis, you don't see DC, maybe but once a year. Or no, St. Louis and DC would play being in the Northern Division, but let's say San Antonio, Arlington, DC had some good games. So they've had some history between those two organizations, the fan bases, right? So, I
don't think San Antonio being in a different division from St. Louis would necessarily be a bad thing as well, just because, with last year and stuff and with the extra, I just think there's a saturation there between San Antonio and St. Louis that even though you could call us rivals, sometimes I think football schedules can get a little stale, and when you have the same teams all the time, you're playing at home. Maybe if it's an expansion with some division realignment, maybe it just puts a new little kick into the schedule that'll get more fans excited as well.
And to kind of echo what James Larson said at the end of his post here, he said he had mixed feelings. One hand, it would be ideal for if people stopped calling the UFL the XFL, which we hear plenty often. And he also says, on the other hand, though, conference realignment would mean potentially losing some awesome division rivalries such as Arlington, DC, or Michigan, Birmingham. Now, we say, well, Well, how's it a rivalry if Birmingham's won the last, 7 or so? It does get chippy on the field though between both these teams, and I love Coach Jarman, and stuff like that. He said clean football games. I want spicy. I want it. I want best. I want it chippy. I want these guys putting their hearts on the field, and no penalties, of course, but there's gonna be, I know there's some, I know some Michigan Panthers players that they like to get and they like to stir up some things. Garrett Marino is one of my favorite players, but he's been a pretty guy on the Michigan Panther defense, so it's gonna be a lot of fun. This is gonna be just something special, just some food for thought for you guys out there.
When it comes to, I have to agree with Eric here. When it comes to rivalries, I mean,
they would both be in the North.
There's a lot of people that say that St. Louis and San Antonio are a rivalry. I don't know that there's so much a rivalry as you just have natural rivalries being in the same division. But I think a true rivalry, St. Louis and DC for sure. I mean, you can go back even to 2020, St. Louis, DC. I mean, they've always, for whatever reason, that's always been a hell of a rivalry.
I did see one post that one fan comment on X that I was like, this is the way. When I read it, he said, move the Roughnecks to the XFL conference, then just bring back 2 USFL teams. You could bring back either the Bandits, or you could bring back, if you want to keep it north, Philadelphia Stars, New Jersey Generals. Now the league's going to have all the information data. Now, if you go outside of that, if you bring in an Ohio or an Oklahoma, you could do Oklahoma Outlaws, but Brett put the, if you can go back and find that, Ed, with the all them teams, all them updated trademarks. There's Portland Breakers in there, Orlando Renegades in there, Jacksonville Bulls. You got options, so they're gonna go and look back at the one of the indicators why Michigan Panthers got a team is when the hub model was in Birmingham. Michigan was very well in viewership. They saw Michigan as one of the top markets watching the league, so they put a team there. And then let me see here.
So Robert makes a comment about wanting to know whether we've heard anything about them making any kind of an announcement at the championship game about any expansion or relocation news or anything like that. Of course, I've read that, but anymore with Facebook and X trying to decipher what's truth and what's just fake news can be difficult sometimes.
Well, Brett's saying, is there any news of Memphis I did not know about? From what I gather, if there's a big stakeholder, FedEx Fred Smith. Apparently he likes the team enough, as far as I know, and he's a big fan of the Showboats, and as far as I know, it'll stay there.
Yeah,
so Brett brings the trademarks there. Yeah,
Brett brings up the trademarks, and I did see that there's some trademarks that have been brought back now. If that means, what does that mean? Over what period of time? Is there still teams in limbo? They just want to have it in case. I don't know.
Seems like a lot of options, a lot of I
can only say this though about it. If you're going to add any locations, whether through relocation or through expansion, please, UFL, make the announcement well in advance to allow those markets to get excitement built on their fan base. Don't wait until December, January, when we're all trying to figure out, when the league's going to start and all that, for new teams to not even know they're in the league yet. I mean, the UFL's got to be more forthright, and the sooner they get the information out, the better.
And that's all I have for this. So just some food for thought as we get going into this championship. So, yeah, in the UFL vault, if you want some old merch, some game used stuff, go on the UFL vault, and you'll see some things from a lot of XFL stuff on there from 2001, 2020 on there. Help yourself. Take a look around, see what you can find. I'm a big football history buff. I'm all about retro things and just things with a lot of meaning. So those things have a lot of meaning to me. Just history of the game. So that's all I have tonight. Ed, you want to close us out here?
Yeah, would appreciate anybody who likes our show and hasn't gone to our page yet and given us a like or a follow. Please do. It was nice to get back in the saddle again this week. It's funny how you can miss just a week and feel like it's been forever, but it was nice to be able to get back in. I know there was a little rust I had to shake off, so apologize for that. Hope everybody is going to the games this Sunday. If you're not going, be watching.
Go to a watch party.
Go to any of the several watch parties. If there's any
sports bars, call them up.
Bars that you go to that they don't have it on the TV, go up to the bar and tell them to put it on. Looking forward to seeing everybody on Sunday. So all I can say until then is have a good rest of your week, and may the better teams win this weekend. Goodbye, everybody. See you next Wednesday.
And that's the bottom line.